What's the origin of the name Brisil? And how did you come upon the idea and start Brisil? Did you have thoughts about consumers who will be the end clients, so on and so forth? Was that all figured out when you started laying out the plans? So, if you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, like, how did I get the idea? So it was actually we learned it from some other company. Like they are a big power generation company, and they were using rice husk to generate the electricity. And the one of the founders of that company asked us that we are using this process where we are using the husk to generate the electricity, but in the process we are getting the ash, and we don't have any utilization for it. So can you develop the technology? It could be a good market and good potential. So this is how we got the idea. And then when we started working on it, then we realized that okay, the ash is it's not a small problem, but actually it is a very very big problem. And there are many companies who are struggling with the ash disposal. And
Mhm.
that's how we realized that okay, from the ash size, the problem is quite big. But on the other side, we realized that the silica which we can get, it can have application in many industries, preferably in tire and rubber industry. And we happened to meet one of the top management person from one of the leading tire company. And director of that company told us that how big this product could be if it is properly developed and commercialized.
Oh,
So that's where we realized that okay, it's a two-way problem, not only the supply side, but even the demand side. There's a huge demand. So if we are solving it, we can have advantages both the end. So this is how we realize, and that gave us the idea that how should we focus. We when we started working on the technology, we realized that okay, the tire industry is something which we should target, and we got into this. So
understood.
this is how it has started, and we got the idea and all.
Understood. That makes sense because the idea is rooted in a problem statement, which was waste
Yes.
disposal and waste management. And then
Yes.
actually the byproducts of that process resulted in another product, which is actually one of the mainstays for tire industry, which is the silica. Now,
Yes.
one of the things that I was reading about is it's silica, but it is highly dispersible silica. So what's the
Yes. Yes.
difference and is it better quality? What's the use here? I mean, I read that it is used as a filler material in tires. How important are filler materials? I mean, is it a big component? And if it is, how does dispersible silica or highly dispersible silica better than a normal silica?
So silica is being used in the tire industries for almost 70, 80 years, like
Yeah.
almost 100 years. I think it uses started during the World War II, because Germany didn't have a silica or carbon black supply, and German companies started producing silica for their trucks and everything. This is how silica came into picture. It is being used in tire, all rubber product, and then many other application for almost 80 to 100 years. But in recent times, like in last 10, 15 years, what has happened that this quality of silica is being improved so that it can replace the carbon black in the tire. And to do that, the silica has to have a very good dispersion than the normal silica, which is being used. So
Understood.
the highly dispersible silica is actually an advanced grade of normal silica, which has a better dispersion properties, which means that when we mix the silica in rubber, the tire is made of rubber, silica, carbon, and some other materials. So silica is mixed in the rubber. Earlier, what used to happen that when we mix the silica in a rubber compound, beyond certain percentage, it doesn't mix with the rubber compound. So highly dispersible silica is a advanced grade of silica where you add more quantity of silica in the rubber compound. Still, it will disperses or mixes well with the rubber compound. So this is how this is what defines the highly dispersible silica. In a way, it is an advanced form of normal silica
Understood.
produced for the tire industry or rubber product industry.
So I can see that the product has advantages over regular grade silica, and that is one
Yes.
of the selling points. But then there is also cost and bottom line. Say, for example,
Yeah.
if I'm a tire industry, I would not want to move anything from the logistics or supply chain or suppliers unless I see significant benefit. So, for example,
Yes.
if I can get highly dispersible silica, but it is priced at a point which is making it a bigger expense as compared to a normal grade silica, even though I will have an advantage, I may not want to move something because the bottom line will get affected ultimately, and it also is something which will require changes in the logistics and everything. So you did mention on your website that its price is comparable to the normal grade silica. But what's your in general opinion about this component?
So, so other than the HDF, the key USP or key advantage which we have is that we are making it from rice husk ash. So
Yes.
almost all of the silica which is available today in the market, it is coming from sand,
Yes.
where river mining is done to get that sand, and then that sand is converted into
Yes.
silica. So that is the process, and what we are doing is that rather than normal sand-based process, we are using rice husk ash. The advantage in our process is that our carbon emission is significantly lower than the normal silica. So our carbon emission is almost 70% lesser
Wow.
than the normal silica. So when we sell to a customer, what we tell them is that you are using normal silica. We are coming up with an advanced form which is coming from Rice Cash, a biosource, and it has significant environment advantages over the normal silica. So now there is a push towards sustainability.
Yes.
So many big customer wants to move to a product which can help them in reducing their carbon emissions or
Yes.
improving their ESG report cards.
Yes.
So for them, this product is much more usable because our silica is generally direct replacement of the normal silica. So the customer doesn't has to change anything. They just replace the normal silica with the rice silica in their recipe, and then the product will give them similar performance. And the advantage is that overall carbon emission of their product would be significantly lesser than
Yes.
what it was earlier.
I
So
mean,
when we compare the whole thing, the customer is at advantage because they have certain targets to reduce the carbon emission. Otherwise, they will have to pay to buy
yes.
those carbon credits and all. So this is a much better option for them, and that's why all the economics and everything comes into picture. They don't compare the price of the normal silica with the rice silica. They compare
Understood.
the complete cost, which includes the
Carbon
environment
credit.
cost as well.
Yes.
So
Understood.
in whole things, it is a better option.
That makes sense. And that's an interesting point because, I mean, 9 out of 10 startups that I have talked to in the past months, they all have somewhere the circular economy concept or the recyclability part or carbon capture part associated to them. So I think, I mean, that's a pattern, that's a trend that is going to stay. Now, one of the questions that I had was, let's talk about the consumers of silica, whether it is a tire industry or some other industry. If we see India as the end consumer, then maybe the environmental goals might not be so stringent. But if we compare the European side of things or the North America side of things, I mean, their regulations are solidly in place. You have to show
Yes.
your ESG report cards. You have to actually, in your annual reports, claim what is your next target in terms of sustainability, in terms of the ESG scores that they need to
Yeah.
display to their shareholders. So I guess the question here is, what is the difference with the USP that you just talked about in selling in India as compared to selling outside of it? I mean,
Yeah, so as you correctly mentioned, the environment push is much higher in the western part, whether it is Europe or US or even now in Japan and other countries. There is definitely a push toward those kind of material, and they definitely report the ESG report cards. But when we talk to Indian customers, so there are two categories. One is that who is very much conscious about this carbon emission and
mhm.
who are taking initiatives to move towards that, because what they realize that may not be today but probably in a couple of years they will have to get to that stage. And the advantage they have is that because they are ahead of the curve, they are exploring products like ours. And then there are some customers who are like mid-sized to small companies For them, this product is not a priority at this point of time, especially the carbon emission advantages.
Yeah.
So we generally target the customers who are looking for something which is advantageous from the point of ESG reporting or sustainability. So we only target those customers, and there are plenty of those in India as well today.
Understood. And I think it is great to hear that you have already differentiated as to who your ideal customers will be. Because
Yes, yes, yes.
sometimes, as a CEO, as somebody whose brainchild it is and somebody who has put sweat and equity in it, people get kind of discouraged by rejections because, I mean, you see the fit, but the other side does not. So,
Yes,
has
yes,
there
yes.
been an experience in the initial years for you where such kind of discouragements were higher as compared to positive note, and how did you overcome that?
They are part and parcel of any startup. So you need to remain optimistic about the future, and obviously you in startup journey you always get such such developments which keep you hopeful about the prospects, because for things to like for any idea or any business to become big, there has to be some big market and big customers. And when in during your startup journey, if you keep getting such customers or such market who is interested in your product, it keeps you hopeful about the future. And it helps you to go through the downsides in the your startup journey.
Yeah, I guess having a solid view of the big picture and future strategy is something, I mean, that helps in
Yes,
overcoming these kind of things.
yes.
Good to hear that. So, Tanmay, I'm going to refer to my notes. Now, there is one portion of the ecosystem which I wanted to understand in greater detail with you, and that's the sourcing aspect. So, of course, power companies have ash as an output, and then there is rice husk, which is very decentralized source of the raw material. I mean, if I may say that. So, how have you figured out the sourcing problem? Is it easy at this point of time? Do you perceive or do you expect that it will become tougher as you grow, as there are more customer and there is more demand to actually consolidate sourcing?
So at this point of time, like before getting into it, we did some research about how much ash is generated,
Yes.
how it is generated, and what we realized that ash is anyway generated in a very huge quantity in India. You just need to have right sources. Like currently, we are purchasing from some companies who are generating good amount of ash, and we have a long-term contract with them. So we know that okay, we have a ash supply secured for the existing setup, and even for the growth we are keeping that thing in place, that whenever we are adding more capacity, before that we are mindful of the fact that we need to ensure the long term supply of ash, and accordingly we act on that part. Going forward, yes, like every product, ash is a waste today. We get it almost at zero cost, but it is going to be a problem in future. That's what we see, and we are preparing ourselves in that way, where we are engaging in the long-term partnerships and investment, so that there is no such issue in future, because there would be new companies who would come up into this space. In fact, they have started coming into this space, and there could be problem of supply. So it happens with every product which is considered as a waste and becomes a product later. The
Yeah,
supply, the price will go up, and we are preparing for that, and accordingly our
understood.
strategies are being prepared.
Understood. That makes sense. So maybe one question that was coming up in my mind, and then hearing you talk about the origin of silica to and then hearing about the German side of things. So there are major manufacturers and specialty chemical companies out there in Germany, like BASF is there, Dow is there. So how do you see them right now in the landscape of people who are supplying silica as compared to you? So I mean, you may be very small at this point of time as compared to BASF or Dow. But they may definitely see this as an area where they are also involved, where they are also supplying to customers. But I wanted to hear your worldview as compared to BASF and Dow. How do you view them? Is this something where you don't think about them at this point of time? Is it a time where you're planning because your growth may be faster and you may be noticeable by them sooner than later? What's your idea? What's your worldview of the Dows and BASFs of the world?
Yeah, so there are like big German companies like Evonik and others, or other European companies like PPG and Solvay, who are big into silica production.
Yeah.
and they all are producing conventional silica, but they all have realized to the fact that this is a new product which is coming in and they need to be prepared for that. So what we know is that they are trying to get into this space, and may not be today, but probably in a few years time they would be our competitors. So we treat them as a competitors. Probably they could be allies in future as well. We can partner with them. There is always such opportunities which keep coming. So as on today, yes, they are somebody who are going to be into this space, and we need to prepare ourselves for that. Like what happens if they come in? They have started working on it. That's what we know. We are exploring all the options how to you know
Okay. So Tanmay, I mean, if I ask you, I mean, so there are startup founders who have a specific end goal in mind. That end goal could be a profitable exit, it could be being acquired by somebody, or it could be that we want to be the best company out there providing silica, and I want to have all the customers who actually I can have, right? So, which category is your vision in right now with respect to Brazil? Where are
So,
you right now?
for us, currently the vision is to scale up as quickly as possible and be a leading global silica as well as green chemical company. So, our focus is currently it is silica and it is going to be silica for considerable future. But then we are planning to expand into the other biochemicals coming from the other biomass waste. So, we see as a becoming a big player in that segment. You never know what's going to happen in future, but as on today we don't, I don't think any fund wants to acquired by some big company when we are starting off, or when we are early in our journey. So currently we are definitely looking for to become one of the leading global player in the biosilica and probably in biochemical space.
Okay. And if I ask you a follow-up question, that what are the two most important things that you need to have but you don't have right now to scale up as rapidly as you are imagining in your vision?
So, more or less, things are in place. We are definitely scaling up, and we are raising funds, building the plant, and going increasing the capacity. So, this is what we are doing. Two things which we do not have is definitely like, which is something we are adding them. One is capital, one is team. That's what you need, because we have technology in place. We have customers with whom we are working for quite some time now, and now to serve more customers, we need to add capacity, and we need team who can take care of the operations and everything. And so we are currently trying to add both of these things, team and the capital to build capacity.
And you were talking about diversification of products, right? So right now you are producing dispersible silica and activated carbon black, I suppose. I mean, those
Yeah, we are
maybe.
in the advanced early stages of the production of that product. Yeah.
And this is just out of my curiosity. So how do you decide what is going to be my next product, right? I mean, is it that anything that is adjacent to what I'm right now doing? So for example, if my current process can produce silica, maybe half of it or some portion of it is also used for producing the next product that I'm thinking about. But I really want to understand your thought process as to how do you decide where to diversify and what are the
Yeah.
parameters
So
that, yeah.
So there are two things. One is obviously what you suggested, that what products we can make from our process by
Hmm.
modifying it or by making some changes. So that is definitely one line of the product. Second is that we are also working on the other bio waste. So this is how we see like what potential product can be produced from bio waste or other type of waste, which like for example silica is produced from the rice husk ash, because rice husk ash has a good amount of silica in it. So similarly, we try to find out what product we can make from other bio waste, what are the chemicals inside them, how can what would be the best chemical which we can extract from that particular waste, which can have a good market value or big market to serve. So this is how we decide. Obviously,
Okay.
the first is that the product which are coming from the same or similar process, and then parallelly the other potential products from other waste sources.
Understood. Understood. I mean, you talked about the origin story of Brazil, and one of the points that you talked about is the director of a tire company. I mean, he validating the problem statement that if there is something which is comparable to what I'm right now using, and if it has the ESG benefits, I would buy it with my both of my hands, grab it with my both of hands. Has there been other problem statements that you were able to validate while talking to customer? Has there been a similar experience that you have had, like you had with the director of the tire company?
Yes, yes, we had, there have been few incidents where some tire companies or some customer has suggested some different type of product. Can you make this and can you make that? And sometimes you feel constrained because you already are working on one problem and you can't get into those things. If you had more time, more resources, probably you will get into those as well. But yes, there have been at least three or four such cases where some chemicals or some problem statement have been shared with us, which can be very marketable products.
Then, apart from the technology, I wanted to also talk about the mindset. And I wanted to maybe move away from the technology and talk about the mindset. And I have a couple of more questions on the IP side of things that I'll ask at the end. So, with respect to the mindset, I mean, generally, I have observed tech founders to be somebody who are very, very deeply involved in the first product or the prototyping or understanding the problem statement and then coming up with the technical solution to that. Now, running a startup is completely different game. Running a manufacturing facility is a completely different game. It is maybe, as somebody who is managing, 30% technical knowledge and maybe 70% people management and growth and future vision kind of part. Now you come from a completely technical background, and I wanted to ask, at what stage in the journey did you realize that, hey, I mean, it's not the technology only, but also the management and the people skill that I need to focus on? And how did you realize this? How did you learn to do that? Or was that natural or an organic process? I mean, how did you go about it then?
So it was largely a organic process when you make the product. So in the product development journey, after initial trials, when you get the product in hand, you start working with the customers. That happens by default because it's not that you make the product and you set up the plant and then you go to the customers. In our process, even at the lab scale, we started interacting with the customers, keep sharing what's happening and what are the issues they find with the product, what improvement we should do, and to understand it. So that by default, it's kind of it was natural to me. But at the same time, we had some mentors and advisors who understand the startup journeys, and they like, technology is something, it's very small part of the thing. It's actually a business, and you need to think about business. And unfortunately, I'm in the western part of India, like Gujarat, where people are more towards the technology is okay, but where is money? Where are the customers? Who is paying you? And so those things are always there. So we had that push from beginning that okay,
Yeah,
technology is good, but other are important.
yeah. I mean, so I saw that you were in some way associated to CII from Ahmedabad. So I
Yeah.
had the chance to actually visit that facility, the incubation center. I talked to them what kind of startups they were working on. But did that help the support from the incubation facility at IIM Ahmedabad? Was that a crucial
Yeah,
kind of?
during our initial journey, that was very crucial support because when you are starting up, you know many things, and first of all, that capital is one of the initial issues you always face. So having first money is always good, which we got from IIM Ahmedabad, CII Ahmedabad, and then initially you need some support. So there were some people who used to guide us with the, how should we go ahead about the things, whom should we approach, and all the stuff. So yes, that was pretty helpful. Even today, we are in
Understood.
touch with them.
And this is your second startup, right? I mean, this is your
Yeah,
second.
you can say kind of a second. It is coming out of the first one only.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so
Understood. Understood. And then let me come to the IP question that I wanted to ask from the beginning, and that's, I see a US patent that you have filed. It is granted in 2020, you have filed in 2015. But why a US patent? I mean, so do you plan to sell there? Do you plan to be present there? I mean, what's the long term strategy in terms of geographical expansion, and why only US?
so we have India patent as well. So we filed for India patent and US patent. The reason was that generally the market, when we talk to customers or when we talk to this law people, what we said, we found that the US, when you have the US patent, it has good enforceability on major part of US, Europe, and other kind of countries. So, they respect if you have a US patent. Filing patent in every country is very difficult. We didn't file in Europe because the cost was very high, so we have to optimize for the cost initially. And we knew that okay, the market is in US, and in Western countries initially. So considering that, we realized that okay, the best way is to go for US patent and India patent. India by default we file first. Yes.
Understood. So, if I look at the purpose of filing of patent or your view of filing a patent, it is to provide a surety to the customers that hey, I mean, this is
Yes.
rooted in technology.
Yes.
The patent office has granted this patent, and the technology is novel. So, I mean, this is
Yes.
something that is proprietary, owned by us, and that's why you don't have to face any problem. Is that the view that you have of patents in general and their
Yes,
usefulness?
yes, yes, yes. It gives a kind of a credibility
Yes.
about the process that okay, it is a novel process, and when US patent is granted, it's like US patent agency is telling that okay, we approve it is a novel process. So that's a kind of a big, we can say brand building exercise in a way where that you have patent for the process. So it is not kind of there could not be any issues, freedom to
Yes.
operate or something like that. So that's the thought behind it. It's a
Understood.
big validity.
And if I ask you, in your journey so far, has that also helped in uh, getting investment, the patent side of things, or has that not played any part in the process?
No, it always plays a big part because even for any investor, there are always concerns what will happen about the
Yes.
technology, how it's working. So when you have patent, it's a kind of a clear-cut assurance that okay, technical part is secure. There is no issues because in chemical space there have been incidents where somebody has come up and share some legal notices that this is infringement in our process or there
Yes.
are some you need to get FTOs and all. So this gives clear cut validity that okay, this is short technology which is developed and it is novel. So when investor invests in, they know okay from the technical or this legal point of view they are pretty secure. There is no issues.
And I appreciate that fact because, I mean, GreyB as a company deals with a lot of those infringement notices. We are the
Yeah.
ones who are doing the research on the validity part or the invalidity part of the patents. So I understand that, and it is very crucial. But very good to understand your views in terms of the patent system, their usefulness, and I think, I mean, this has brought up a point which a lot of other people may think about, that having a patent is not simply boasting, but it is also a practical use where people are assured of your credibility as compared to simply having a portfolio of a large number of patents. But that makes sense. Then I think that was the last question that I had. But in general, what's the future of sustainability according to you? I mean, you are in the space of specialty chemicals or in general chemicals. But what's your view working from the past 8, 9 years in this space as to how is it going to evolve and how
Oh,
soon?
it's already evolving at pretty rapid pace. Like when we started, we used to believe that it is a kind of a maybe from the western part of the world, but today we hear about it from the Indian companies. Like I was part of one meeting at one big tire company in India, and it was presentation by all of their top management, and the most common word where they were sharing about the future of their company, and in these 2 3 hour detailed presentations, the most common word was sustainability. They were deeply focused, and it's not only tire industry; it is all industries. Whether it is so, we supply silica to oral care, food, animal feed, paints and coatings, and everywhere we hear that our focus is now sustainability. It is kind of a now become a part of their process that whenever they buy some raw material or they make some product, they calculate okay, what is the cost and how what
Mhm.
is the energy consumed or emitted
Mhm.
during the process. So that is it has
Mhm.
become very key part, and in India also now it has become at least for the top companies or big companies, it is kind of a day-to-day part of their discussion. So it has evolved, I think, in India as well.
Understood. Understood. But very great talking to you, and thank you for sharing your views, Tanmay. I think when I thought of silica, I was interviewing another startup that was actually leading the sugar reduction initiative. Now, imagine silica being part of the sugar reduction initiative. So, what they were using was having small silica balls on which they were coating sugar. So, instead of
Okay.
all sugar, they were only keeping
A small
portions
one.
that will reduce
Yes.
the amount of sugar. maybe that is your next product. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe we can look into
You never
this.
know, but
Thank you.
there is, yeah, I mean, cross industry adjacencies with respect to silica, I think it is great. And it is also great because silica is non-toxic, it is a neutral substance. So I
Exactly.
mean, that also
Yes.
brings a lot in terms of application areas. But very good talking to you, Tanmay. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you. That would be great. Thank you, Vikas. Okay.
Thanks, Tanmay. Thank you for your
Bye.
time.